Well, it's been another week and we've had another episode of The Bad Batch come out, episode 8 of Season 3 Territory. And this episode I think was very interesting and quite entertaining to boot, because it all starts off with Echo and, Omega and Crosshair being back home. Crosshair is still adapting to life, and oddly enough, he still wears his body armor around, while at the same time, Omega seems to be getting a bit twitchy. Maybe it's the fact of just being in confinement, or maybe it's the fact of just missing Echo. Bearing in mind the fact that she worries about all of them quite a fair bit. And as of right now, having to sit out on the sidelines when she used to be in the thick of things with the rest of the Bad Batch is a bit of an odd thing for her, but at the same time it does make a lot of sense. Given what's happened, and given the fact they lost her, she was gone for several months, and for a fact, at their current safe haven, it's at least partially safe. And quite possibly to distract herself, she's been given a new task, oddly enough, which is to try and figure out what's been going on with Crosshair's hand shaking. That tremor that he's developed has gotten gradually worse. In fact, it seems to actually be getting worse, oddly enough. When they're not just being his hand, now part of his arm is shaking along with it. I was surprised in the episode because I thought it was sort of like maybe just a byproduct of his hard life. Maybe perhaps this is the byproduct of genetic manipulation and tampering with Jango Fett's genome. Or maybe for a fact that by stretching Jango Fett's genome has revealed flaws in the cloning process. And Crosshair is exhibiting one of these flaws. In actual fact, it might be psychological, the reason why his hand's shaking. We don't exactly know what happened in that lab and what the experiments they did to him. We know for a fact they did try and turn him into a clone assassin, as his natural skill with sniping does seem to demonstrate. Also, what made the episode, I think, especially interesting is the fact they decided to go off and find the bounty hunter who tried tracking down Omega in the first place. The one sent after them by the Kaminoans after she was, the Bad Batch and Omega escaped Kamino as the Empire imperialized every aspect of society. This was further entertained by the idea that maybe perhaps they understand what's going on, especially even the fact that Omega has told them what they might have been doing, specifically like endocrine transfers and clone endocrines. This might explain for a fact how Palpatine comes back in The Rise of Skywalker. All of this does seem to make sense, given the fact that Palpatine is basically trying to become immortal. But what really added depth to the episode, I think, was the fact they had to track her down. And oddly enough, they tracked down Fennec, the bounty hunter who was initially sent out after Omega in the first place, thinking she might know, she's a bounty hunter. Now, she doesn't say how she knows, or what information she can dig up. And of course, she says for a fact, it will cost them quite a bit more money than they have. But Hunter and Wrecker need leads, so they go off to find Fennec, and they talk with Fennec about the possibilities of what they're going to do. She knows for a fact that in the short time they were in the underworld, the Bad Batch have become mercenaries, and they have garnered a reputation. I mean, they certainly gave her the slip, and she's one of the best bounty hunters there is. But also, adds another dimension to the whole process when you consider that Fennec is looking for information, but of course, she wants their help with a job. Now, what exactly does this mean? Well, Fennec is a bounty hunter by profession. Now, of course, she does seem to specialise in assassins, given the fact she has a preference for her high-powered sniper rifle, would suggest. But, of course, she does involve needing to capture targets alive. And she basically has them capture someone who stole a lot of money. The bounty is wanted to be captured alive. And, the Bad Batch did give her the slip, and she knows for a fact that Wrecker is not only the team's hairy brawler, but also specialises in explosives and demolitions, and Hunter's natural-born tracking abilities and ability to read the land also comes in useful, as they journey off to a hostile planet that is literally covered as basically a giant toxic swamp, which humans have to wear specialist breathing masks to actually go about in. And Fennec's helmet, while quite possibly offering a reasonable degree of protection, does have an open slot for a visor and doesn't offer in the way of breathing protection, which does seem a little bit of an odd choice given the fact of a lot of army helmets dating back several thousand years in Star Wars would incorporate some form of air filtration system into the design, which means for a fact on the planet that Wrecker and Hunter have to wear their helmets. And they track this guy to the planet And of course they have to go around doing it whilst on the run from a number of creatures. At the same time, our bounty hunter and Hemlock are not exactly being the best of friends, given the fact that, well, basically she'll take the reward as a fee for the information she gives them, while at the same time asking for their help. Not that they really have to do much about it at all. But what adds even more depth to the episode, at least in my opinion, is how the battle plays out. Hemlock is particularly clever, using a minefield to block the enemy's approach, forcing them to go around, take a circuitous route, which might give them time to escape. Also bear in mind that they're not natural fauners and get you first. And somehow Fennec has actually been to this planet before, getting a leaky boat that capsized on her. Quite possibly means she probably had a natural tendency with the Star Wars version of an alligator, which is reasonably, it has reasonable resistance to blaster fire, and does require is very strong, and looks like quite possibly could potentially tip over a boat, or the swamp craft, or what they use to travel about on the toxic marshes. And then there comes the fight with the guy himself. The Mark is an insectoid, is very strong, very fast, very agile, and seemingly has an immunity to stun. It takes 4 stunners to bring this guy down, but nonetheless they do catch him. Meanwhile, back on the island retreat, the Bad Batch have called home, Omega and Crosshair wonder what the problem is. After consulting their medical droid, who runs every test he can think of and does some, if he finds nothing wrong, it might be for the tremor is psychosomatic. And so Crosshair doesn't accept that, so he goes off to do what he's good at, which is shooting, but he still misses. As a result, he has to find new ways of trying to figure it out. Luckily, Omega, being the naturally curious child she is, has picked up more than a fair few different techniques from various travellers and the society she's visited. Namely, she learned meditation from a Jedi Padawan who went to Kashyyyk at the end of a particular mission and learned how to meditate from him. And as a result, she tries teaching Crosshair the same technique. And maybe this thread could be quite interesting going further down the line, but it'll be certainly interesting to see what happens next. I mean, this episode was very interesting. We also learn at the end that Fennec is working for someone else. Could be Sergeant Ventress, or it could be an Imperial she contacted. We don't necessarily really know. But by the end of the episode, we have a lot more information. Now, we now know what Palpatine wants from a clone, but not only does the clone have to be able to accept them, presumably maybe some form of transfer, presumably memories and everything else, but also might have to handle Palpatine's incredible force powers, as he is a very powerful force user. That, plus, oddly enough, Crosshair's developing problem, might lead to even more interesting stuff further down the line. And with that, I've been the Universal Challenge. Please leave a like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll catch you in the next one. Cheerio!